안녕하세요. My name is Åsa Torukelson. I work as the chief of UNFPA's representation office here in Seoul, in Republic of Korea. UNFPA, it is the United Nations Reproductive Health Agency, and we work around the world to make sure that every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person's potential can be fully realized. And we also work on areas of demographic resilience, which is along the lines of noting some societies are aging and the low fertility rates are appearing. For UNFPA right now, we see our representation offices, which we have in some of the important donor countries. We have one representation office in Copenhagen for the Scandinavian donors, in Washington, D.C. for North America, in Brussels for EU, Tokyo as well, and also in Addis Abeba, Geneva, and London. So we nurture the relation with our important donors, and we see ourselves as a kind of a prism, which means that on the one hand, we seek to amplify the work that UNFPA is doing in the Republic of Korea to share the story of the support that Korea is giving to many of the countries. But on the other hand, we seek to convey the Republic of Korea's interests and preferences to our organization. So a lot of the work that we do are actually to help coordinate efforts between countries that are recipients of Republic of Korea's support. And one of the very important contributions we have is a substantive funding for the Conflict and Fragility Program. We call it CFP, which is a humanitarian program that is funding for 6 countries which have very challenging circumstances. They are Lebanon, Mali, Central African Republic, South Sudan, Somalia, Palestine. So some of the steepest challenges in the world right now are unfolding in these countries. We have a coordination unit for support of that program located within the Seoul Representation Office. And in addition, we try to make advocacy for the Republic of Korea audience in the areas of our mandate. So right now, for example, there has been a lot of interest in our work on low fertility in some countries. We have a large unit in our organization who are technical experts on these matters, and also aging populations. What kind of adjustments are needed, both financially and also in terms of the societies and of the economies. This is a photo actually, which is when I was holding a presentation at the APEC meeting on women's economic empowerment. And it's quite interesting that the picture is showing an experience we made in Thailand. Even if it's a very upper middle income country with a good economic circumstances, there were a lot of teenage pregnancies, and especially among the vulnerable populations, including the marginalized groups. So we were seeing that adolescent girls, they had some specific needs in relation to UNFPA's mandate. We also know women in the reproductive ages have different needs in terms of our reproductive health and rights. And one of the important challenges, I think, is to be able to combine our work and also being parents. And the elderly women have other challenges, especially related to their economic circumstances, their health. As you know, matters related to women's health has been heavily under-researched. So we may not know all of the helps we can get in terms of the menopause, but also the menstrual support systems that we may have. But we were seeing that women at different ages needed different supports. So we created a digital platform for all of the women together to share all of the different informations that they need. So the photo on the side of my presentation, it will show the women across the life course from all of the ages which we live in and the different needs that we have in the different ages. I think for me, the interest in sustainable societies really came from my interest in promoting gender equality, which I felt that I experienced already at an early age, being the eldest girl with the 3 brothers. And I developed an interest for football. And I was seeing that I was a very strong player, but there were no teams at my time for women or girls. But I was playing with the boys, and they were never ever passing that ball to me. And I think that was really prompted my kind of cognition on frustration of being a girl in society, which of course was a minor manifestation at the time, but it provoked and sparked in me a leadership yearning to make a change. And I was bringing other girls along who initially wasn't so interested in football. And we went to the headmaster to negotiate and say, we want our own ball and we want our own court. And beautifully out of that experience, they gave us a small green field and they gave us a leather ball where we could play in our 2 teams. And after that, we actually created a more formal team in which I played for many years, and we had a dedicated trainer. But I think it really sparked in me the reaction to the challenges that are both emotional but also factual, but also that with leadership we can actually change these conditions. So for me, I do feel that the harmonious cohabitation and inclusion of women and men's perspective is a very fundament to the sustainable development of inclusive societies, because everyone is bringing different perspectives to the table and different abilities, and we shall not be excluded because of some of these physical markers. And I guess that really sparked my interest. So I brought this item with me, which is very interesting. It's the ball for the Sustainable Development Goals, which you are familiar with. So you will see all of the goals portrayed here, and goal number 5 is that for gender equality. The efforts I made was to be very actively engaged in different volunteering opportunities that the society was providing, but also starting different opportunities. It probably opened up my eyes to the greater injustices in the world. I became very involved in the movement for what was happening in South Africa, following closely the movement of Nelson Mandela. It really turned a kind of a fire in me that I felt very passionate about making some type of contribution in the direction of making a better world. And that condition continued with me, so it has defined the studies that I made. During my university years, I worked a lot in different elderly care centers. I took care of children to finance my education as well. And after, I went as a volunteer to environmental camps in Italy, where we were cleaning natural parks. I guess that was my really first hands-on experience working a lot with the environmental matters. I studied international social sciences and tried to find a way to write my thesis on burning matters of different injustices. My topic was on the northern and southern Italy at the time, which had huge disparities. That triggered my interest specifically, I think, for development economics, which is where I then took master in development economics. And I started to understand that I would love to go the way of the United Nations and making different attempts. I was able to join as a junior professional officer for a program based in Zimbabwe, but operating in 5 different countries in the region, working with farmers, ministries of environment, ministries of agriculture, which really deepened my interest in the intersect between the environmental and natural resources and also gender, because my role was to look at women's and men's role in agriculture. And after having worked like that in several years, including for the FAO, which is the Food and Agriculture Organization, my passion was growing larger and larger, and I decided to do my PhD to understand these matters more in depth and I wrote about women's and men's work in agricultural markets. So there have been these two streams for the longest time on the environment and sustainability engagement, but also on the people aspect, namely the women and men, boys and girls who are living off the natural resources and the interrelationship between them. And then after that, I was able to work for the World Bank in Kenya 4 years, and I set up the gender program, which was quite amazing because it was very focused on the gender integration in the agricultural sector. They had a massive agricultural lending operation with the government of Kenya, supported from different sustainability angles, including on the water side, water and sanitation, agriculture, and so on. After that, I worked for UN Women for many years in Eastern and Southern Africa region, focused on gender and agriculture, which is such a large employer, especially for poor women and especially in that region. Eventually, I applied for the leadership program of UNFPA and I was accepted. And in 2018, I had a chance to start as a representative for UNFPA in Bangladesh, and after that moving to Malaysia and Thailand, and then coming to Republic of Korea last year. Again, I'm remembering this was in the last century. It was in 1999 that my first son was born. And I remember really being so happy about expecting my child, but at the same time having my first job within the United Nations. That was another dream of mine. And understanding at that moment how difficult it would be, and being quite anxious and agonized to understand, would it even be possible, this situation? And I also realized that within the United Nations at the time, there was not many role models to ask of others who had had a similar journey. I think I felt at the time quite lonely. And I was fortunate to be invited for a conference where I met two important women who had precisely done the same. They had been able to nurture their careers, and they had also been able to nurture families and raise families and have children. So I tried to talk to people who had the aspirational situation that was hard but possible. And they were showing as an example that it was possible. And I tried to understand from them what it would take. And in their view, I think clearly having a very supportive partner was a very important feature. And luckily at the time, and still today, I do have a very supportive partner. But he is also a strong-willed partner, which has led us to live in maybe not conventional ways. He's a medical doctor, he is a pediatrician, and he has, in times of when our 3 children have been born, he was home with our first child for about a year. And our second child, I was home for most of the time. And then he took paternity leave for a long time with our third child. And since I've been in Seoul, he is taking care of them on his own and of our household in Sweden. And we try to then find the time to spend together that we can. So I think on the one hand, it was demanded from us to have not only to be two supportive parents and to have an agreement and a strong discussion on how we would be seeing our complicated lives that were unfolding, but also be willing to be very open to new ideas. We didn't have a borrowed model that we could just plug into, and we had to try to figure out a new way of living together, which I can say now, I feel it hasn't been easy many of the times, but it has been wonderful to be able to have done that. Well, I have been working for many different UN organizations and multilateral organizations on different themes relating to gender equality, as I mentioned, mostly on the natural resource side. And then for many years I was economic empowerment advisor for the World Bank, but also for UN Women. So I felt that the topic of women's health and of our reproductive lives is a very first-hand conditioner of all of the other factors that are coming. So I feel very grateful to have been able to and to be working in this space as well, which has given me a very 360-degree view of the conditions that are shaping the experience of women and girls. I think once you see something very challenging, and if you are able to do it, that is when you feel your great fulfillment. I had a photo here in August of 2017. About 1 million of Rohingya refugees were entering into Bangladesh from Myanmar, and I joined our organization just a couple of months thereafter. So it was such a difficult circumstance that they were in, and having come from a lot of tragic violence where they had been, trying to set up a refugee response together with the government of Bangladesh for such a large population, which came with so much trauma in a short time. And I felt very fulfilled that we were actually able to organize, to provide the support for them within the areas of our mandate. And all of that was actually quite challenging. Now, you couldn't feel quite fulfilled because the tragedy is still there. The solution for them has not yet been found. But from our point of view, to find the resources to provide for their needs in terms of their sexual and reproductive health and needs, to overcome such enormous challenges, not only to set up humanitarian response, but also face challenges all of the time. There could be a fire in the camp, there could be a hurricane coming, which would take away all of the efforts that were made. Or suddenly there could be, you remember the COVID that came, which created unsurmountable, it felt, challenges to the current condition. To try to find ways, together with a beautiful team that we had, around 170 people working alongside the government with many non-governmental organizations, and meet tirelessly and relentlessly the evolving needs, was a sense, and to lead that effort and to see the beautiful work of my colleagues was something, a very beautiful thing to witness. And in addition, we were able to resource from new partners, and we were also very appreciative of the government of Korea to provide a substantive support to this program, to the effect that for the first time when I came to Seoul in 2019, I was invited to talk about the work that we had done in Bangladesh for UNFPA with the support of the government of the Republic of Korea. So it also ties me back to coming to Seoul for the first time at that time, and now being back here, which is mind-blowing in a sense. Here in Seoul, I try to start my day with meditation, and then I try to go for a walk. I feel fortunate to live very near to the Namsan Park. So you can see me early in the morning in that park, trying to jog or also to walk. And then I try to get ready, and some of the days I work from home. And if I go to the office, I would take the line number 6, and then I would walk the forest line, which starts at Mapo approximately, which is also a way to immerse in nature, because there is a lot of beautiful trees and a lot of beautiful nature there. You can follow the moving of the seasons. We work all together in a small room at the Yonsei University, where most of the time when we are together in the office, we try to teamwork to solve all of the matters that we have together to do on the humanitarian coordination front, and find out what our priorities are and try to work towards them on a daily basis. And then I walk home and I can see a beautiful sunset from the hills of Itaewon, Noksapyeong, which is a beautiful way to wind up the day. But in the night we have calls most of the time with our headquarters, who are based in New York. And we of course have a different time zone, which makes it something we have to do in the evening. Well, for UNFPA, our focus SDG is SDG 3 on health, and then also SDG 5 on gender equality. Of course, the partnership goals, I think they are so essential because the SDGs are so complex to reach and no one can reach them on their own. It's really quite essential to be team working very well with different players to reach these SDGs. It's something that is also a little bit frustrating for me because my family is far. So one of the things that I would have loved to not do is to use air travel so much to see them, to be able to use the train as much as I can, to be able to use the environmentally friendly solutions. For example, in the Republic of Korea, I try to walk as much as I can, to use public transport. I try to live with the smallest footprint that I can and try to avoid unnecessary consumptions. I try to be very mindful about what I'm consuming in terms of the foods that I eat, and that I make sure to also eat all of the food that I eat, and that I transport in environmentally friendly ways, and that I then take care of my waste in the ways that I can. I try to also minimize my consumption of electricity, but I also recognize it is a challenge when it's very warm and it's very humid. So I'm always confronted with the shortcomings. So I try to also educate myself in these areas. And when I'm failing, I'm pleased to have 3 Gen Z children who will always remind me when I'm not doing enough, where I could be doing more. Right now, my ambition is just to learn to be more open, to enhance my capability to manage complex situations, to manage my abilities to provide solutions in this world in whatever way, and that I be someone who is an agent of peace, empowerment for other people, and to strengthen that in me, that personality, and to be open to the challenges coming my way and the opportunities that come, because the world as we see is changing quite a bit. So maybe the dreams that we had some time ago, they will need to adapt, and therefore maybe my strategy right now is just to enhance my capability to be open to life and also to have an agile way to approach life and the opportunities and the people that I meet, which is an adventure every day. I wish to remain non-judgmental, non-discriminatory, strongly in my mind and heart, and to have the courage to speak the words that need to be spoken, even when sometimes it will be difficult. And to offer the support that we can, such as, for example, I was bringing clean delivery kits to mothers who are not able to go to the hospitals. So to see these opportunities and provide the solutions, see the new innovations, and work on this particular challenge, namely the demographic resilience of many of the societies. We have been working to realize the ICPD agenda for the longest time, but we have had 3 particular goals as an organization, namely 0 preventable maternal death, 0 unmet need for reproductive opportunities, and then 0 gender-based violence. And this year we are actually working to create a new goal for 2030, supporting countries in the demographic resilience part. It hopefully will be approved as one of the themes that we will be working on, which means that we will probably intensify our work and our support to the countries in terms of advice for the low fertility and the reproductive agency agenda, to strengthen it, but also for the aging of societies and provide advice on what we can do and how to adjust given this demographic reality that is ahead of us. You know, my favorite SDG is not, on the one hand, looking very promising, because we were seeing the results from the World Economic Forum on the gender gap report, and I think they were noticing it will take 137 years for the gender equality target will be reached if we continue at this pace. And I think, therefore, we are more likely to be farming on the moon before we have gender equality. I just find it hard to accept that it would take that long. And when I see wonderful, beautiful, driven people as yourselves, I also don't think that you would be happy to wait 137 years. So I think definitely we need to find a way to quicken the pace to meet that goal in a shorter time. And with all of the innovations that can take place, I must be confident and hopeful that we'll be able to find some smart ways to meet this challenge. We have to continue to keep these mission statements objective high on the agenda. Many countries are sliding away from support of this agenda, so it's important to keep reminding ourselves on this. It is very important to continue to provide the resourcing of this agenda, which we can also see a lot of new female, if you wish, philanthropy is there to provide support. It is now our job to make sure that it's going in the directions where it can productively go. And in addition, we need to keep watching how the trends are going and seeing if we have good examples, can we implement them elsewhere? Sometimes it feels impossible to meet this goal because it is such a large goal, it's not going in the right direction. For me, already when I started this work 27 years ago, it seemed an impossible task. And now I can see that the conditions today are widely better than they were, for so many women have been lifted out of impossible situation to better situation in that time. So that has to bring me hope. And in addition, I felt on the gender mainstreaming agenda, which is so large, it is important to set some concrete targets. Because when we do that, we can also celebrate them together with others who are meeting the targets, and that can give us energy to continue. I think you are doing exactly what you can do right now. You are trying to see ways for which you can inform yourselves on different themes that are interesting to you, that has ignited your passion on this agenda. And then you're bringing your different skills. You have that drive that is actually needed. And you are manifesting the curiosity to learn from others on ways that you could actually go about. You can rely on one another to harness the energy and to advise one another on how to go. We are here to provide any other suggestions that you may have. Please feel free to reach out to, for example, UNFPA, based here in Seoul. Continue to reach out to us, stay engaged, tell us what more we can do for you to meet the needs going forward. I felt really excited and I felt very honored, and I learned a lot because it is my first time to do a YouTube interview with such an amazing team. So I feel very excited. Thank you. I am SDG guy Åsa, still SDing every day. Let's keep SDing together from here on out. Bye everyone. Bye.